Hey guys, what's up? It's Pac-Man Trolls with another deck tech video for my Magic the Gathering. Here we go. We'll start it off. It's my Dimir deck. My Dimir deck, not my brother's. Same deck, but the differences are, there's a big difference. We have our land base. We have Evolving Wilds, which you tap, you sacrifice it, search your library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. So it helps you get some land out and maybe even get a better shuffle with your deck. We have two Dimir Guild Gates, which enter the battlefield tapped and add a black or blue mana to your pool. We have two of those. So those are good cards to have in the deck. We have one. We have 10 swamp mana. It's right there, 10 swamp. And we have 10 island mana. So that's the land base of the deck. This deck is again based mainly on milling your opponent's cards to win the game in the end. It's a really good deck to have and really kicks ass. So yeah, let's go with the creatures now. Creature base, we have a Jace's Phantasm. It's a 1 blue mana flying. It gets a +4/+4 as long as the opponent has 10 or more cards in his graveyard, and it's a 1/1 with flying for 1 blue drop. That's the first. We have a Dakra Mystic, 1 blue mana. If you tap a blue in the card, each player reveals a card from his or her library. You may put the revealed cards into their owner's graveyards. If you don't, each player takes the card pretty much, draws a card, 1/1. It's a good card to have as well. For our 2-drop creatures we're going to get into, we have the 2 white of Preceit 6. 1 black, 1 colorless. It gets a +1/+1 for each creature card in your opponent's graveyards. It's a 1/1. This thing boosts up pretty big. They're really good cards to have. Duskmantle Guildmage, a 1 black and a 1 blue. If you tap 1 black, 1 blue, and a generic, a card is put into a graveyard. Whenever a card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere this turn, that player loses 1 life. And if you play 1 blue, 1 black, and 2 generic, target player puts the top 2 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. It's a 2/2. So those are good to have in the deck. We have a transformation card in this deck as well, Ludwig's Test Subject. It's a 1 blue, 1 generic mana. Defender, 0/3. Whenever you play 1 blue and 1 generic, put a hatchling counter onto it, and if it has 5 or more, you may transform it into a badass 13/13 with trample. Ludwig's Abomination is what that card is called when it transforms. Really good card to have, for a 2-drop especially. And then we have the 3-drop cards. We have Death Cult Rogues. For a playset of Death Cult Rogue. Black or blue, 2 black or blue mana, and 1 generic. Can't be blocked except by rogues, 2/2. So that's just going to keep hitting them over and over and over again if they don't have any rogues. Another good 3-drop card for the deck. 4 playset of Mortis Strider. 1 black, 1 blue, 1 generic. When it dies, return it to your hand, and it's a 1/1. So they never die. They're annoying cards to really piss off your opponent. We have 2 Sage Rose Denizen, which whenever a blue creature enters the battlefield under your control, target player puts the top 2 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. 2/3 for 1 blue and 2 generic. So that is that part. We have a Diregraph Captain, which would be really good for a black-blue zombie deck, but it's a very good card for this deck anyway. Diregraph Captain is a 1 blue, 1 black, and 1 generic. Has Death Touch, and its other zombie creatures you control get a +1/+1. Whenever another zombie you control dies, target opponent loses 1 life, and it's a 2/2. So yeah, we have our 4 drops coming up here. We got a Vidalcan Entrancer, 1 blue, 1 3 generic. For 1 blue in this card, target player puts the top 2 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard, and it's a 1/4. Pretty good card. We have 2 Balustrade Spies, 1 black, 3 generic, flying. Whenever it enters a battlefield, target player reveals cards from the top of his or her library until he or she reveals a land card, then puts those in his or her graveyard, and it's a 2/3. So that's another good card to have. and we have 2 returned centaurs. When they enter the battlefield, target player puts the top 4 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. 1 black, 3 generic, 2 4. For our 5 drops, we got a Mind Eye Drake. 1 blue, 4 generic, flying. Whenever it dies, target player puts the top 5 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. It's 2/5. That's a good card to have in the deck. We have a Phoenix, God of Deception. God card, 1 black, 1 blue, and 3 generic. Indestructible. As long as your devotion to blue and black is less than 7, it's not a creature. Creatures you control have tap it. Target player puts the top X cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard, where X is that creature's toughness. And it's a 4/7. Next card, a big game winner card, Consuming Aberration. 1 blue, 1 black, and 3 generic. Its power and toughness is equal to the number of cards in your opponent's graveyards. Whenever you cast a spell, each opponent reveals cards from the top of his or her library until he or she reveals a land card, then puts those cards into his or her graveyard. So it boosts up like crazy. 6 drop cards, we have 3 more creatures in the deck. Maze Glider, flying, 1 blue, 5 generic. Multicolored creatures you control have flying, and a 3/5. That's a 6 drop. Archetype of Finality, 2 black and 4 generic. Creatures you control have Death Touch. Creatures your opponents control lose Death Touch, cannot have or gain it, and it's a 2/3. And then Archetype of Imagination, 2 blue, 4 generic. Creatures you control have flying. Creatures your opponents control lose flying, cannot have or gain it, and it's a 3/2. So that is the creatures of the deck. For the main deck, I should say. Because in this deck I have a sideboard, which I've never really worked with until now, and they're really good. So that's the creatures. We have our sorcery cards now. These are great as well. My god, I have a lot more sorcery than I thought. Okay, so sorcery. We have 1 drops. We have 2 Tomb Scours. Target player puts the top 5 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard, and 1 blue mana. That's that card. We have a playset of Distress for our 2 drop. 2 black mana. Target player reveals his or her hand. You choose a non-land card from it, and that player discards that card. Those are good. We have a Mind Sculpt, which is 1 blue, 1 generic. Target player puts the top 7 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. Pilfered Plans, 1 blue, 1 black, and 1 generic. Target player puts the top 2 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. Draw 2 cards. So it's a pretty good card to get your cards and put their cards in the graveyard. Asphyxiate, 2 black, 1 generic. Destroy target untapped creature. 4 drop. Last Thoughts. 1 blue, 3 generic. Draw a card. Cipher it onto a creature. So exile it onto an encoded creature you control. Whenever it deals combat damage to the player, its controller may play a copy of that card without paying the mana cost. So draw another card, pretty much. And then Rise from the Grave is our last sorcery. 1 black and 4 generic. Put a target creature from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It's a black zombie in addition to its other types. That is our sorceries of the deck, which all add up to be really, really good for the deck, obviously, and milling your opponents. Instance of the deck consist of certain we have a Spell Rupture, 1 blue, 1 generic. Counter a target spell unless its controller pays X mana, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. That's a really good one if you have your Consuming out, and is huge. Countermand, another good card, 2 blue, 2 generic. Counter target spell, its controller puts the top 4 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. More milling. 2 Grisly Spectacles. Destroy target non-artifact creature. Its controller puts a number of cards equal to that creature's power to the top of his or her library and his or her graveyard. 2 black, 2 generic. Another good one. And then Totally Lost. 1 blue, 4 generic. Return a target put target non-land permanent on top of its owner's library. So pretty much gets those out of the way, pretty much. That's that of our instants in the deck. Now we're going to go to our enchantment, our only enchantment, Soul Ransom. 1 black, 1 blue, 2 generic. Enchant a creature. You control the enchanted creature. Discard 2 cards. Soul Ransom controller sacrifices it. then draws 2 cards. Only an opponent activates that ability. Good card. And our last card of the deck is our Jace's Memory Adept. 2 blue, 3 colorless. Planeswalker. +1, draw a card. Target player puts the top card of his or her library into his or her graveyard. 0, target player puts the top 10 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. -7, any number of target players each draw 20 cards. 4 royalty. Really good card to have. Now, we're going to get into our sideboard. Hopefully I can finish this video before it's too late. Dimir Key Runes, we have 2 of those. 3 generic mana, adds a black or a blue mana to your pool. If you tap a black and a blue, it becomes a 2/2 black and blue horror artifact creature that is unblockable this turn. So those are pretty good. We have our enchantments as well. 2 Death's Approach, 1 black mana. Enchant a creature. Enchanted creature gets a -X/-X, where X is the number of creature cards in its controller's graveyard. Good to kill off creatures and get them less powerful. And a Way of the Thief. 1 blue, 3 colorless, enchanted creature. Enchanted creature gets a +2/+2, and it's unblockable as long as you control a gate. 2 Paranoid Delusions. These are good. 1 black, 1 blue. Target player puts the top 3 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard, and Cipher, which I explained earlier. 2 Midnight Recoveries. 1 black, 3 colorless. Return a target creature card from your graveyard to your hand, Cipher. Whispering Madness is another good card to have in there. 1 black, 1 blue, 2 colorless. Target player, each player discards his or her hand, then draws cards equal to the number of the greatest number of cards a player discarded this way, and it's ciphered. Mental Vapors. 1 black, 3 colorless. Target player discards a card, and cipher. Concerned Confession. 1 black or a blue, and 4 colorless. Target player puts the top 4 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. You draw a card for each creature card put into the graveyard this way. Shadow Slice is another good card. 1 black, 4 colorless. Target opponent loses 3 life, and cipher it. Some creatures. Incursion Specialist. 1 blue, 1 colorless. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, it gets a +2 attack and is unblockable this turn. So it become a 2/3 and it's a 1/3. But anyway, that's that. 2 Gutter Skulks. 1 black, 1 colorless, 2/2. Pretty good card to have just to have in a sideboard. 3 Dinvora Horrors. 1 black, 1 blue, and 4 colorless. When it enters the battlefield, return a target permanent to its owner's hand, then that player discards a card. And it's a 4/4. So those are good. A Glacier Crasher. 2 blue, 4 colorless. Trample. Cannot attack unless a mountain is on the battlefield. 5/5. And a Colossus of Akaros. 8 colorless mana, Defender Indestructible. For 10 mana, colorless, Monstrosity 10. It gets a +10/+10, and it becomes Trample, and can attack as though it didn't have Trample. A Defender. And it would be a Trample and Indestructible 20/20. That is my black and blue Dimir deck. This is my sideboard, and the others were my main deck. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Nonetheless, thank you for watching. This is Pac-Man Trolls. Like and subscribe. Thank you. Peace.